Before I begin the main part of this video, I want to mention its primary purpose. This is intended to be an example of how a reasonably friendly and entirely civil disagreement can happen. It seems far too many people have right now forgotten, or perhaps had the misfortune to never experience the culture of civil disagreements in public that I was able to experience as a longtime viewer of YouTube videos. Hopefully, if enough people give good examples of civil discourse, we can go back to doing that and leave this recent dark patch of time behind. None of this prefaces to say that I do not believe the following parts of this video. I stand by every word of it. With that said, on to the discussion. In a recent video content maker Gothix posted, she laid out some views on how politics interacts with the morals of people in society. Though this served as a small part of her objections to calls for unification with left-wing people as a self-identified right-wing individual and Christian, I will not be addressing her full video, because I either don't disagree with or have no opinion about the rest of it. The section begins with her describing an understanding of how to fix society, which she shared with Charlie Kirk.
It's a different foundational belief, and that foundational belief affects the way that you vote. It affects the environment around you. And clearly the people who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder have a different foundational belief than all of you who are watching this video and probably looking at them like, what the hell's wrong with you? Okay. And so what Charlie understood, and is what I understand, and it's what many Christians understand, is that if you want to fix the culture and you want to fix the politics, you have to fix the foundational belief.
This concept of foundational belief as the basis of morality raises some flags for me. Belief, to the best of my understanding, is a pairing of faith with some statement or group of statements which a person considers to be correct. Faith, whatever else it might be, is at least in part a state of mind that interacts with human emotions. It is the case that plenty of people derive their moral stances based on religious beliefs, but such beliefs can never be universal. Even two believers in the same religion, following the same dogma, and considering the same situation, cannot be said to have identical moral positions on the issue. I'll explain in depth why this is in a bit, but knowing this is enough to show why I do not agree that any society can have a foundational belief as the template for a shared morality.
Politics, you have to fix the foundational belief. And the foundational belief within Christianity is that God is our source of good. That's our standard of good. So when we think about morality, it's okay, what is God's character? And that's where morality flows from, that's how we determine what's right and what's wrong, is what is God's character, okay? And now someone who doesn't have that foundational belief will usually resort to saying that my source of morality is my own personal preference, or it's whatever the government decides, or it's what the social consensus is. And that tends to be the ongoing explanation for people who try to determine their morality without God. And the problem with that is that it's a self-defeating standard, meaning that if it is true that my morality is just based on my opinion, then someone else can say the same thing. And so if that's true, then what happened to Charlie Kirk wasn't actually bad.
The usage of God's character as the basis of morality is a good example of some of the issues with claiming any foundational belief as the basis of morality. Perception of God's character is something assessed by people using their unique mind and experience of the world, so it must to some extent be subjective, if not entirely individual. This means that it can't be universal in both perceived form and behavioral outcomes. Either every person is understanding some external universal thing with their individual perceptions, or understanding of God's character is shaped differently for every individual believer to let them enact the same behaviors. As there is no known way to interact with God in the way we interact with the natural world, we also cannot use the probable answers of the scientific method to find any likely objective truths about God. The problem of understanding God's character renders it as a basis for morality basically as well supported as an individual opinion. As we saw, Gothix objects to the use of personal preference as the basis of morality. Now, the most obvious objection to morality formed from personal opinion being quote-unquote self-defeating is the existence of sympathy. Despite not actually experiencing something, people can feel emotions about and object to events that happen to others. This is sometimes cited as the reasoning behind the Golden Rule, which I've heard said as, do to others what you would want done to you. This alone encourages people to generally act in a manner that doesn't injure others or disrupt society. Sympathy and the ability to put yourself in someone else's place crosses over with the public consensus as basis for morality. Public consensus is the combination of a society's individual moralities with an added enforcement mechanism: force. It is in general very hard for a single person to enforce their personal system of morality onto a large number of people. It's not impossible, but the results of public consensus in societies show that it is a good first layer of defense against individual people who decide to act immorally. Laws from the government are a distillation of public consensus, which is heavily reinforced against sudden changes in the preferences of the majority of society at some particular time. It is harder to change the laws of a nation than it is to change people's views on morality. Obviously, with enough change in the public consensus over time, laws do change, but it is even harder to change them in a way that clashes with individual human sympathy than it is to change public consensus the same way. I don't know anyone who would claim that our emergent system of morality in the modern world is perfect, but it is clearly developed as good enough to allow the existence of 10 times as many people in the world as there were 250 years ago.
My opinion, then someone else can say the same thing. And so if that's true, then what happened to Charlie Kirk wasn't actually bad. I might disagree with it, but it's not actually bad. And then you can say, okay, well, there's laws against it, right? And the law determines what's right and wrong. Well, the law said that slavery was okay. Are we saying that morality always changes? And if that's the case, then morality is always a moving target. And well, that doesn't make sense either.
The way that the modern world derives social moralities may be an imperfect moving target, but that doesn't mean it's useless. A system doesn't have to be perfect to be better than all the previously tried systems. I think it's useful to have a rising target based on subjective experience to have our society's morality based on, because it encourages us to always seek a better solution. This will be taken advantage of at times, and individuals will try to completely overhaul it, but the same public consensus that helps build it will also stop it from being fully destroyed. I think that it would be an awful mistake to confuse the deviance of a minority of people from the moral baseline of society with some inherent flaw in a society's morality. Outside of something like a set of axioms where logic is applied to derive what is moral and what is immoral, there is no objective way to build a system of morality. There will always be people who do not harm society, yet also do not follow a subjective morality. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater.